Control the kitchen chaos and streamline your back-of-house operations with Restaurant Technologies. Restaurant Technologies' total oil management solution is the end-to-end automated oil management system that delivers, filters, monitors, and recycles your cooking oil, taking the dirtiest job out of the kitchen and lets your employees focus on more important tasks. The total oil management solution helps prevent the burns, spills, slips, and falls that come from traditional oil management. Restaurant Technologies gives you and your employees peace of mind among the chaos of a commercial kitchen and can maximize efficiency for your business. And no upfront cost. Learn more about Restaurant Technologies and the solutions they offer by visiting rti-inc.com or call 888-796-4997.
Hello, and welcome to Menu Talk with Pat and Bret. I'm your co-host, Bret Thorn, Senior Food and Beverage Editor of Nation's Restaurant News and Restaurant Hospitality.
And I'm Pat Cobe, Senior Menu Editor of Restaurant Business. Welcome.
How you doing, Pat?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm also doing well. Tired. There's just so much to do all the time. But,
yes, and the heat is not helping. It's really been in the 90s every day. So,
thank you. That's a good point. That sort of helps justify my exhaustion.
Yeah.
That going outside just wears me out.
Yeah, I did have a chance to try this new Moroccan restaurant. It's actually not super new, but it's been open about a year. It's in Tribeca, in the Manhattan neighborhood of Tribeca. And the chef was really interesting because she's Indian, but she lived in Morocco for about a year and learned how to cook Moroccan food and really fell in love with it. And the name of the restaurant is Tara Kitchen, and they do brunch and lunch and dinner. So I went for brunch, and one of their specialties is something they call 1,000 whole pancakes. So the pancakes are yeast raised and then whipped up in the blender or with a mixer, and so they get very airy. And when you cook them, you only cook them on one side. She explained the whole process to us. A lot of bubbles form on top, and they get a lot of holes in them. So we were calling them lacy pancakes too. They were actually very interesting and good.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that. Before we started recording, you said you went to this Moroccan restaurant. I thought, cool. I also went to Terra Kitchen. I didn't eat there actually, but the same publicist, I'm sure, said, "Hey, thousand whole pancakes," and I thought, okay. So I actually went there and shot a video, and I haven't done anything with it yet. But I met one of the chefs, sous chefs, who sort of showed it all for me, and indeed, he mixed everything up in a blender and poured it into multiple skillets at low heat, and and then served them to me with some sort of sweet honey-ish syrup thing. Yeah, very tasty.
Yeah.
And pretty.
Well, the chef owner is Aneesa, and she has restaurants up in the Albany area too, where I guess Moroccan food isn't too plentiful. So it's nice that she, can serve it up there too.
Well, and it's interesting that she's Indian and decided, I'm going to do Moroccan food, which, sure, you don't have to serve the food of your background. It's not required.
No, for sure. And, both of them rely on a lot of spice mixtures. So they're not that dissimilar.
I mean, all cuisines have similarities with each other. You know, we're all starting with the basic sort of approach of nourishing people in a friendly and delicious way. And speaking of chefs who cook food not of their background, I went to Empeon al Pastor last night. Alex Stupak's probably most casual of his Mexican restaurants. He has, of course, the fine dining Empeon in Midtown that is elegant and lovely and beautiful, and Empeon al Pastor, which I hadn't been to, but it's 10 years old, and it is in the East Village in Manhattan on Avenue A. Like graffiti on the walls, very kind of dive bar ish, but with delicious, very well thought after um, Mexican food, mostly tacos, but also chalupas. Although his chalupa, I mean, traditionally they're on a corn cake, but maybe it was a corn cake, but it felt like just a really hearty, robust baguette. Maybe it was a corn cake. And they do a cheeseburger taco, which was okay. But the pastor was delicious, and the chalupa was delicious, and I drank inexpensive Narragansett lager with it because that seemed appropriate.
So do they do the pastor on a rotisserie spit, like, and cut it off with
I
pineapple?
honestly I don't remember seeing that, but they might. I would think they would just because Alex Stupak is like that.
Mhm.
But it was nice to see him. He swung by, just not certainly not to see me because it's one of his restaurants. He stopped by and he looked so sort of relaxed and happy, which
Mm.
I first met Alex many years ago when I was at like a molecular gastronomy workshop in Tulsa, and he was the pastry chef of Alinea at the time,
Mhm.
and he was so buttoned up and intense and just rigid might be too strong, but he's a serious guy, and he still is, and I respect that about him. And his food reflects seriousness, but he was dressed casually and he smiled,
Nice.
and the publicist who I was eating with suggested that maybe that's because he has kids now, and once you have kids, your priorities shift, and you learn not to take things that are not your children so seriously.
Right. And he's also at a good place in his career, so he doesn't have to stress out about, getting Michelin stars or beard recognition or something like that.
He's got him. He's done it. The food,
Yeah,
wine, best in
for
chef,
sure.
all of that. He's done it all, and he did it all years ago. So
Yeah.
now he can just sell
He can
tacos new ones.
have fun just cooking Mexican food.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe that's it. Maybe just serving tacos makes you more relaxed.
Well, I could see that. I also took a deep dive into family dining this week in a story I did. All of a sudden, it seems like the big chains in that segment, like IHOP and Cracker Barrel, Denny's, Perkins, which actually changed its name. They're all overhauling their menus and trying to figure out, how where they fit in the total scheme of things. I guess, and do they want to go after younger customers? They want to keep their steady customers as well. So they have to find the perfect balance between those two kinds of menu items at this point, like
Yeah,
innovating on one side and then, keeping some of their tried and true favorites on the other.
yeah. I mean, that's an interesting challenge for them because obviously you want to develop new customers, especially in family dining where the customers tend to skew older. And you want to bring in some newer, younger guests just for the sake of your own longevity. And it's true that how they innovate can be that it's a difficult line to walk. I think is
Yeah.
that what you reported on? I haven't read your story yet.
Yeah, I mean, it is a difficult line to walk, but I think they're figuring it out. They're adding new beverages, they're adding flavors that appeal more to younger consumers. And when you think, the segment is called family dining, and the people with families now are in their 30s and 40s, or some 20s, so they're not
Right.
in their 60s anymore.
Yeah, they're
So,
millennials and Gen Z.
yeah, those people that we love to talk about. So,
Mhm.
so anyway, yeah, so they're figuring it out and adding some really innovative flavors, but they're also focusing on value because that's really important right now to everyone, no matter what your age group is. S-
Right.
So yeah, it's a balancing act of value, innovation, keeping some of the signatures that you're known for. So they're shaking up the category a little bit now, and it's kind of interesting. It will be fun
Interesting.
to watch.
Yeah, and family dining is always sort of a value proposition.
Hmm.
Um, and Friendlies has been adding some new stuff too recently.
Hmm.
I noticed they I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but it's ice cream with fries in it, or maybe fries with ice cream on top, or something like
Right.
that.
Yeah,
Um,
we probably both mentioned that in our menu tracker stories, but it was kind of interesting. It was sitting in a dish with French fries around it. The Wendy's, shake that they tell the Frosties that they tell you to dip French fries in.
right. When and I thought of mentioning that new friendlies item in my story that I just wrote this week on potatoes and what's going on with them. And a lot of chains are sort of emphasizing their own brand identity while also putting potatoes on it or in it because everybody loves potatoes. It's a way that they can add a little bit of adventure to their menu items without scaring away their guests because there's always going to be fries underneath. So that's fun. And it's something, Manit Chauhan started doing, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago
Hmm.
uh, at Chauhan Masala and Ale House, I believe is the name of the restaurant in Nashville. And she started putting like chicken tikka on fries, and,
Hmm.
as a sort of variation on poutine. And now a bunch of chains are doing that. Shake Shack currently has its barbecue items, and so you can also have either of the two barbecue sauces that they rolled out on their fries. And
Hmm.
a lot of poutines and loaded fries and disco fries. And there was apparently, I don't watch the menu, or not the menu, the bear. But the bear apparently had an episode called Omelet, in which the hero puts potato chips on an omelet. And I interviewed a chef who said, I want to eat that. So she made it and has an omelet stuffed with a house made Boursin cheese and some locally made sour cream and onion potato chips that she offered at brunch, and it sold well. So
Yeah, I did see that episode, and it was interesting. And then, Bobby Flay's been doing fries on burgers for years. So
yeah, it
there,
makes sense.
yeah. And it was also National Fry Day, as we all know, in July. So maybe that's why all these new fry promotions came out and new variations on fries.
It
They
doesn't
really
hurt.
like, they do latch on to National Fry Day. It can really bring in a lot of customers who
Right.
don't.
Well, as we discussed last week,
Mhm. Right.
I don't like these national days, but consumers do. In fact, I was in one of my favorite bars last, I don't know, this weekend, and apparently it was Tequila Day recently. So this guy had come in with his wife to have a margarita, and I asked him, you can do that anytime you want. You don't have to do it on Tequila Day. And he said, well, it seemed like something to do. I mean, these things work.
Yeah, they definitely do.
And there's also a California custom, San Diego especially, I believe, to make burritos with French fries in them. And I didn't mention that in my story. Maybe I should have. But that's another thing. And when I was visiting family in Denver a while ago, I noticed that a local chain called Illegal Pete's gives you an option of putting potatoes in your burritos. They're not fries; it's more
Mm,
of a diced kind of home fry kind of thing. But why not? I would rather
yeah,
have
for sure.
potatoes in my burrito than rice. Because
Well,
potatoes
and I
are
don't know
good.
if you've ever been to Primanti Brothers in Pittsburgh, in the Pittsburgh
Hot.
area, but they put fries on their sandwiches, like roast beef sandwiches and that kind of thing. So I guess there are a lot of good examples.
Well,
For
now
sure.
that reminds me of when I went to culinary school in Paris in the 1980s. And I used to love to go down Rue de la Huchette, which is like the Greek street, and get a Greek sandwich, which was basically a gyro, but with, better sauces because I was in France. And, there'd be marinated eggplant on it and other things. And they would also put fries on top. That was a
Oh,
delicious sandwich.
well, we
I
could do
like
a whole
that.
story on this for sure.
Yes, I could do another potato story. I mean, I will next year, probably, because there's always something new to say about potatoes. I don't. Oh, I did have potatoes at the restaurant of the chef who I interviewed for this week. I interviewed Brian Ogden, who historians or just longtime restaurant people listening to this might know as the son of Bradley Ogden, who was an early practitioner in the 80s and 90s of modern California cuisine. And
Hmm.
Brian came up doing that. And one of the things that they do at Bourbon Steak, where he's the chef now, Bourbon Steak in New York City, is they offer a trio of fries. Like they have fries with three different types of spices, and they come with three different types of sauce, and that's just sort of a way to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, that
Uh,
sounds yummy.
yeah, I mean, yeah, you're not going to go wrong with that. And honestly, if you're going to eat at Bourbon Steak in New York, I mean, the food is really delicious. You pay for it, but it's delicious. Anyway, I spoke to Brian. The restaurant just opened on May 21,
Mm,
and I asked him about his early influences because he obviously is Bradley Ogden's son, but he also worked for Michael Mina, who is the chef of Bourbon Steak. Um, he worked with him early on, or worked with the company early on at Aqua in San Francisco. But
mhm,
let me play that clip.
So I've known Michael for a long time. I've known his restaurants. I've been a fan, and he's obviously a mentor. And a lot of his corporate team, his corporate chef Adam Sobel and Gerald Chen, we all went to culinary school together, and
Oh,
we opened up Bradley Ogden in Las Vegas, and so it's New York has come full circle for us that I'm working with the team again.
so yeah, he's been working with these people a long time, or
yeah,
had worked with them, and now he's back. And he's not shy about being Bradley Ogden's son, which is good.
mhm.
It's good going up to that. And he talked a little
I
bit
think
about
it's
that.
interesting that they brought a steakhouse to New York, though, because New York has its share of steakhouses.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
and I'm sure theirs is differentiated because it's run by Michael Mina and, Bradley Ogden is the chef, so they probably bring a little California vibe to it, but it's just interesting that steakhouses are just never going out of style, and they seem to always be busy.
You said Bradley Ogden, but obviously Brian Ogden is
Oh,
the chef.
yes, I'm sorry, Brian.
We all do that. It's okay. But I did ask him about his about being Bradley Ogden's son.
I think the most influential thing was, being around the whole food world, growing up around the farmers markets in California, Northern California, and being in the restaurants. I did it for baseball card money when I was a kid, so that was the motivation. Up until I went off to school, I tried to play baseball, but realized I was too short. Uh, and I went to Cal State Fullerton, and I started dining at Spago Beverly Hills, and at that time, Wolfgang was doing amazing, still doing amazing things. It's always been a wonderful restaurant, but really got inspired. Michael Bonacorsi, who bless his soul, has passed, but was a huge mentor of mine on the wine side of it, and I wanted to do wine, and went off to Santa Barbara. Asked my dad to help me get in with Michel Richard at Citronelle, and wanted to do front of the house, and all of a sudden I got up there and I was in front of the chef. And since then, I've never looked backwards. And then, spent a year with Michel Richard, did a little bit of time with Alice Waters, and went back to the Culinary Institute of America.
So he definitely has that California background. And Michel Richard was such a big personality that I can't imagine you'd be working in a restaurant with him and not want to start sautéing things and chopping vegetables and stuff.
I didn't realize he had started in California because I always associate him with Washington, D.C.
Well, I think
Michelle.
he started in DC and then was
Oh,
in
okay.
California. But now that I say that, I realize I don't really know what I'm talking about. I'm not sure where
Well, he was
where
in
he
both
started.
places. We could leave it at that.
You
But
can leave it at that. I think it's funny that as a college student, he ate at Spago because most college students can't do that.
right, he
So
must have had a good dining budget.
yes, or his dad took him or whatever.
Right.
That's a benefit of when parents come to visit you. Obviously, well,
Yeah, for sure.
somewhere long, somewhere nice. But as you said, he is bringing a bit of that California seasonality approach to bourbon steak, and obviously that's not new in New York City. You're a former podcast guest of yours, Laurent Torrendell, did that with BLT Steak many years ago. I really liked his restaurant. The
Mm,
sides there really stood out, and I still remember the popovers at
yeah.
BLT Steak. But anyway, this is supposed to be about Brian Ogden, so I asked him about the menu, and this is what he said about some of the new stuff that's coming up.
We just launched a kind of a first of the season cherry tart, a little sweet 100 cherry tomato tart with burrata and pesto and a little olive vinaigrette on that. Delicious, one of my favorite dishes on there. We are moving away from morels and going into chanterelles. We launched a gnocchi dish that's chanterelles and lobster with the roasted garlic butter. We're moving away from asparagus and moving into snap peas. We just launched a cream corn dish on the menu as a side. So a lot of fun things going on.
It's really interesting that he's using sort of local to New York vegetables now that are in season because corn, I don't know how much corn is grown in California, but corn is like really plentiful in New York State, Long Island right now, New Jersey, and it's the best corn in my opinion.
Well, it's a big deal in this part of the country,
It is.
and as I won't shut up about, I moved recently, and so I'm no longer near a farmer's market. But before, at this time of year, I would every Saturday I'd go to the farmer's market and buy corn
Yeah.
and roast it in my oven. I keep the husk on so that it
Mhm.
tastes more corny, and throw it in the oven, and that was delicious. But I haven't had corn on the cob yet this year. Maybe I'll do that this week.
Well, yeah, you'll have to get some. I was out on Long Island a couple of weeks ago and I had it out there. It's just, but I guess there are two schools of thought about cooking it. Some people cook it like you do in the husk, in the oven, or on the grill. I like to steam it in just a little bit of water and just, turn the water off after it comes to a boil and just cover the pot and it comes out perfect.
Yeah,
Very,
that also sounds great.
yeah.
Yeah, I often I just boil vegetables like with beets. People love to roast beets.
Hmm.
I feel like if you roast a beet, it actually concentrates it too much, and it's
Yeah.
too sweet and too rich. And so I boil it and just sort of let the beet be itself, and that's how I like to eat a beet. Um, they
Sounds
don't need
good.
to be roasted, and they don't always need to be served with goat cheese.
Exactly.
Like enough, we get it. Beet and goat cheese are good together, but come on, mix it up a little. So obviously, Bourbon Steak is a steakhouse. So I asked Brian Ogden about his steak program, and well, I have two clips about that. Here's the first one.
We have Wagyu. We have we have a world of Wagyu, so we feature Australian, Japanese, and American Wagyu. We're highlighting Washugu out of Oregon, which is 10 plus, which is the highest on the scale. So we have a 14-ounce ribeye from them, which is incredible. We're moving into sheer Wagyu, which is a small husband and wife operation out of Australia that we're doing a 8-ounce fillet with. That's incredible. And then Hokkaido snow beef, which is our A5 uh, Japanese Wagyu. So, and just incredible, delicious.
It's a lot of Wagyu, but that's the whole country is just going nuts for Wagyu. There's so much
I
of it.
know. What are the
Uh,
prices like at Bourbon Steak? It sounds like they have a pretty high-end menu.
yes, a lot. I don't remember, but I went with a friend who is a bartender, so he made sure that we tipped well. The
Mm,
restaurant invited us, which was very nice, but
right.
we judging based on what we ate, we left a $200 tip to give you an idea
Oh,
what
okay.
the check is going to be. So
Got it.
it was a lot. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Go on an expense account, or bring a rich friend who likes to treat you. I think. Or splurge. I don't want to tell anybody not
Mhm.
to splurge on a delicious meal at a steakhouse. And here's the main beef program.
Our core program is centered around uh, Nyman Ranch Prime, which has I've seen it develop from day one. My dad actually was instrumental when working with him with the feed of the beef, but it's gotten bigger and bigger now. It was a small operation, but what they're doing is incredible, and the consistency and the quality are just amazing for their prime.
It sounds like they get very high-end kinds of beef. So do they have seafood? And, obviously they must have some seafood on the menu too.
Yeah,
And
yeah, they have the full kind of steakhouse situation, which
right.
includes all sorts of different high-end seafood. I believe in another clip he's going to talk a little bit about some of that. Um, and he is the restaurant is located at the Essex House, where Les Celebrités was with Chef Christian Delouvrier, and Alain Ducasse at the Essex House was there. So it's like a very prestigious location.
Hmm.
And it's on Central Park South, which is very, very fancy. And so he has customers who can afford to eat there, and often come with high expectations. So I asked Brian Ogden about his approach to that. He likes his customers, by the way. I'll,
Yeah.
I'll preface his clip with that.
What we do is we try to create really a relaxed atmosphere where you can come and enjoy yourself, dress as you will, but the quality there and the execution is there. And I think that whenever you're at a price point or you have a restaurant that has the hype or the expectation attached to it, you have to hit a certain level or you miss. So we try to go way above and beyond that level every day, whether it's remembering, okay, it's your second visit and remembering what you like to drink on your first visit. We take notes on all those things, to make sure that we offer an experience that goes well and beyond the bar, the expectation. And it's always that kind of pursuit to do more, to do better, to really elevate that experience for the guests. And that could be you coming into the lounge and having a burger and a glass of wine, or having a full dinner. Everything is important. Everything is the same to us, and really trying to just elevate that experience, whatever it may be within these walls, to take you above and beyond your expectations. And that's the goal. Whether it's giving a couple kids at the table a kitchen tour and handing them a fresh churro in the kitchen, or talking to them about the difference between strawberries, or little things we've been doing lately to elevate the experience, which is fun for me. I get a lot out of it. I think it's more fun for me maybe sometimes than the kids, but we've been doing a lot of kitchen tours with the kids these days, and they're loving it. So it's a lot of fun for me too to talk about what we do, and who knows, maybe inspire the next great chef. So
That's such a cool idea, especially when, kids sometimes get a little antsy when they're sitting too long. So what a nice thing to do for the parents as well.
Oh, for sure. Well, and as I understand it, the young generation doesn't like restaurants anymore. Like, they aren't, so much of the food now that they get is delivered at home, that they find restaurants to be strange and alienating places. I don't know. I haven't seen data on this, but I've
Mhm.
certainly heard this story multiple times from friends of mine who, when they're eating out with their kids, obviously keeping the kids quiet and happy is the priority. And I have friends with teenage kids, and we just go out without the kids because the kids don't want to be in restaurants.
That's interesting. Wow.
Yeah. So maybe I just have weird friends with spoiled children, but they want to be entertained, and certainly teaching them about strawberries and handing them a churro is a different way to entertain them rather than just put a tablet in front of them. So
Yeah, no, I love that idea.
yeah. I mean,
Was
I was going to say I'm not opposed to tablets either, but give
No,
them.
but I think it takes away from the experience. I think kids should learn how to sit in a restaurant for a little bit of time anyway before they get the tour. But distracting them with the phone or a tablet. When I was at Tara Kitchen last week, there was a family of four sitting next to us, and everyone was just looking at their phone while they were waiting for the food to come. It was very disconcerting.
That reminds me of when I was with some friends. I think it was a sushi restaurant, but some restaurant in Boston when I was in college. And there was a married couple sitting next to us, and each of them had a magazine in front of them.
Oh,
And they didn't exchange a single word the entire time that we were there. They just sat, ate their meal, and read their magazine.
oh,
Which, yeah, to me, I like, why are you going out then? But I mean, it's their marriage; it's up to them. But it's a reminder that even before electronic devices, we could fail to communicate with our
true.
significant others.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that the kids probably saw when they got into the in the kitchen was the interesting way that Bradley Ogden, not Bradley, I did it too. Brian Ogden and his team cooks their steak. They start by poaching it in butter, and they have four different butter baths.
Mm.
I think three for steak and one for seafood. Let's have Brian Ogden tell us.
yeah, so it's unique to us. I mean, it's something that's been done. We used to do it in sous vide, but nothing like this where you have that much space where we have 4 different butter baths. 3 of them are set up for the meats with aromatics, garlic, rosemary, about 119 degrees. So really what that's doing now is we're tempering the meats, bringing up to almost room temperature. It's imparting a great flavor with those aromatics. And then that butter coating is really, letting that seasoning stick to it once we pull it out of there. And you get that, now that it's tempered, you don't shock the proteins on the grill, and you get that nice to one temperature all the way through the meat. So we're cooking then over wood and mesquite, and then basting with red wine butter. The meats all get rested. They get flashed again underneath the broiler to crisp up the fat on the outside, and then brushed again with more red wine butter. And, as long as with those tools in place, the quality of the product, all you got to do is execute and cook it perfectly, and you have an amazing steak.
And I think it's funny that he said, all you have to do is execute it, because that, of course, is the hardest thing about running a restaurant is doing it consistently. I mean, sometimes, not much anymore, but sometimes chefs would be all secretive about their recipes. And I always thought that was silly, because just because you have a recipe doesn't mean you can make it. And especially that you can make it consistently all the time. And Brian Ogden came up in a culture of sharing. He worked for Charlie Trotter early on, and he also was a big sharer, and also obviously extremely meticulous. He spoke about his background a little bit, and I want to play that.
We grew up around that when we were at Charlie Trotter's. Charlie was always about sharing everything. And I think Michael has the same philosophy. We have a whole database called MX. It's a MENA Exchange, Recipe Exchange. Every single recipe that we do, everything before it hits a plate is tested multiple times, all to the gram. It's troubleshooted. There's notes to it. There's allergies to it. There's certain specs, whatever the product. Everything is thoroughly thought out before it ever hits a plate. We don't just say, oh, we're going to run cream corn next week. No. This recipe has been tested from the development team. Chef Mina has to stamp it. The other corporate chefs have to stamp it. Then we have to bring it, taste it, train the staff. So there's a whole process to it. But everybody has access to it. Our front of the house, we've been given some guests access to it. But yeah, we'll share anything. It's I think it just does the world a better for all of us to be better culinarians and to share and to cook and talk. And the more we talk, and nobody knows everything. So I think everyone's got different experiences and viewpoints, and people have different cultural backgrounds that could influence what they do. And it's something maybe you've never seen before, and they show you a technique or a flavor or an ingredient that you haven't worked with, and it opens your eyes to something brand new. So I think that creative process and the whole sharing is part of the whole hospitality world nowadays.
It's a great attitude. I mean, even if you share the recipe with one of your customers, I mean, who has a butter bath at home, and who has the kind of equipment where you could, like sear it and put it under the 550-degree broiler? So I don't think there's any risk of someone running off with your recipes and opening a restaurant just like yours.
Right. And even if they can, you got to do it consistently every time, and that's the hard part.
Right.
And also, I think giving a restaurant recipe to a civilian will let them know how hard the restaurant's working to make your food for you, and good luck trying it at home. And if you're doing it at home, your food cost is going to be absurd, and the expense of cooking it at home is going to be crazy. So
True.
you learn. Well, one thing we talked about is the fact that the Essex House is a union property, as most hotels in New York are. And I wondered if that was a problem for Brian Ogden. And here's what he had to say about that.
They've had, fortunately, a lot of the guys here for 15 years, 10 years, and they were able to work with Ducasse and at least Les Celebrities and, other great restaurants, and they've had great training, and they have been, the backbone for us to get this thing off the ground. So we were fortunate enough, and we expanded, so we had to hire another 15 guys, but the core group was there. And then another thing that, that I think that MENA group does really well is opening restaurants, and they will saturate the kitchen staff. They'll bring in a corporate person for every. They have a Rex team, they call it. So that team comes in and ensures that everyone's trained. They work the station side by side with the new guys, train. So you always have a quote unquote chef on every single station during the opening process to secure the quality and the consistency and to make sure the training is done properly. And it really helps to solidify the restaurant and get that base of trained staff quickly.
Mm.
Michael Mina seems smart.
And successful, and that's the reason, because he's so smart about opening restaurants.
Yes. I mean, he has enough experience now doing it that he
Mhm.
should. But since unions came up, and because Brian Ogden is from California, I asked what he thought about the increase of the minimum wage for fast food workers to $20 an hour. And
Mhm.
here's what we had to say about that.
When I was coming up, I worked 18 hours a day. I got paid $107 a day, and I was happy doing it. I think there's opportunities now, and the field is changing, and cost of goods are changing. Everything. I think $20 an hour. And I'm in California. I mean, we were paying $22 an hour 12 years ago to cooks. So $20 for fat, it doesn't jump out at me. From an owner's perspective, I understand it. I understand the numbers and what that means. But for a fair wage, I'm all for it. It's those guys work hard. They work hard in tough conditions. They don't stop, and they produce. So if people are producing and they excel, and they should be compensated. And that's my kind of take on it. Simple.
Good for him.
When he started, maybe you thought he was going to say, "Well, when I was a kid, I suffered, and everyone else should suffer," but he went a different direction.
Yeah. Well, I think people who come up in the hospitality industry really feel that the teams have been underpaid for so long. It doesn't matter if you're in fast food or fine dining. It's been a struggle, especially in the back of the house,
Yeah,
because
I
you don't get
mean,
tips.
yeah, the back of the house in particular.
Mhm.
I mean, it's interesting that a lot of the lobbying for workers is to get rid of the tip credit so that you provide the full minimum wage to servers, and maybe that's necessary in like a family dining restaurant. Although when I waited tables at a big boy restaurant, family dining in the '80s, the tipped minimum wage at the time in Denver was 201 an hour. Minimum wage was 335, and I made $6 an hour regularly from tips, and that
Mm.
was family dining. And I mean, how much servers in New York City make with our prices. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah, they don't wanna give up those tips.
no, no. Well, and yeah, to raise it to um, $15 an hour or whatever the minimum wage is in New York now, something like that. But it doesn't matter. I mean, the staff that waited on me and my friend got $200 extra for a couple hours. I
Right,
mean, and so the challenge I think is much more in the back of the house where people work really really hard and they don't get most for the most part the compensation they deserve. Now, this is easy for me to say as a non-restaurant operator who doesn't have to do the accounting and make ends meet and struggle,
right.
which is a very difficult thing to do in fine dining. But I'm going to say it anyway.
Yeah. It's a tough subject. I mean, it's really everybody has their own self-interest, and it's hard to come to any compromise in the middle at this point.
Yes, um, but maybe we will.
I hope so.
So, you got big plans for this week?
Well, at going up to Cape Cod, and I hope to try another lobster roll, and hopefully it won't be $42. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean it's not going to be cheap for sure, but
No,
it also will probably be good. I've never had bad seafood on Cape Cod, so
no, it is pretty up there.
yeah.
So I'm just going to compare the East End of Long Island with Cape Cod as far as prices go and quality. I'll give a report next week.
Great. And whatever it is I do, I will also give a report. Thanks for hanging out, and thanks, audience, for listening. Tune in next week when we will hear from a guest that Pat interviewed.
Control the kitchen chaos and streamline your back-of-house operations with Restaurant Technologies. Restaurant Technologies' total oil management solution is the end-to-end automated oil management system that delivers, filters, monitors, and recycles your cooking oil, taking the dirtiest job out of the kitchen and lets your employees focus on more important tasks. The total oil management solution helps prevent the burns, spills, slips, and falls that come from traditional oil management. Restaurant Technologies gives you and your employees peace of mind among the chaos of a commercial kitchen and can maximize efficiency for your business. And no upfront cost. Learn more about Restaurant Technologies and the solutions they offer by visiting rti-inc.com or call 888-796-4997.